Welcome to Healing Generations, a podcast creating a dialogue uplifting the importance of healing, strengthening, and supporting our communities, and that addresses the disparities and inequities in communities of color. Healing Generations is brought to you by the Healing Generations Institute, a collaborative initiative of the National Compadres Network and the Brotherhood of Elders. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on our new releases.
Welcome to the Healing Generation podcast. My name is Ariel Jimenez, and I will serve as your host for today's segment. As we continue these conversations, it's important that we center them around young people healing, that we highlight the struggles young people face and lift up the ways in which they heal. For that reason, today we're joined by Maria Vera, who currently works with youth in Salinas and who was once a youth participant herself. So let's just go ahead and just jump right in. So thank you, Maria, for joining us. We're excited to have you, and we're excited to have this conversation. So welcome.
Thank you, Ariel.
So you already know how we do things in Círculo. You already know how we do things at NCN. It's always important that we start with conocimiento. So, before we get started, let us know a little bit about you. Who are you? Where do you come from? Who is it that you represent? What do you want to tell us about Maria, who showed up today?
So my name is Maria Vera. I am a Salinas native, born and raised, the east side of Salinas to be exact. I am a daughter, I am a mother, I am a sister, I am a community member. And I want to emphasize the community member part just because I feel like life itself and our experiences bring us into community. But a little bit about myself. I was a little girl growing up on the east side who grew up with a bunch of like-minded folks and took different avenues. I ran into a few problems, which guided me into mentorship, and that in itself pulled me into the work with NCN.
One of the things that you said that you wanted to emphasize was community and doing community work and being a community member, and even emphasizing East Salinas. Right? Because where I come from, East San Jose is a different world than the rest of San Jose. And I'm assuming East Salinas is the same. And about community work, what is it about community work that brings your passion out, right? Because for me, I've always been taught community starts at home. And yeah, we might get a paycheck for it, but we do it because we love the community. So what is it about community work that drives you?
I think the experiences, the lack of resources, the same struggles with different perspectives and different approaches. Mm-hmm. I think that just in itself, as humans, we're usually pinned against each other.
Yeah.
So I feel like, again, emphasizing the East Salinas, we have a lot of farm workers, we have a lot of raza, a lot of people without the resources to thrive in a community that they provide a lot to. And the only reason why I say that is because Salinas feeds like the world around, So a lot of our immigrants are facing those challenges of working in the fields and being the provider and still being looked at or undermined, as human beings. So I think that's what kind of centers me. The beauty of like hearing the paletero and hearing the elotes, like just the convivencia, the love, the actual, I don't know, the love. Yeah, just the love, the actual love, because I can't even emphasize more on that because it's like you are in the office with the door open and you see someone and it's like, hola, it's not like, oh, ellas están en oficina. No, their community, their raza, and the acknowledgement is there. So I think that the acknowledgement piece is also very important.
Yeah, I think both of those are important, right? Like one, acknowledging that there is no resources for the people who are a resource for like the entire world. Because when you think about some of the crops and food that hit our table, like the biggest community that provides that is in Salinas, right? And people don't acknowledge that. So how is it that they are a resource for the whole world, but they themselves lack resources because we don't value their work. We don't value them as people. That to me has always tripped me up. And then the love component too. That's true. Because I think that connection, that community, like not just the fake, how's it going, good mornings, but like, how are you doing? And how can I support you? So I love that. Follow-up question tell us a little bit about your work. Like, what agency do you represent? What is it that you all do day to day? What are some work that you might want to highlight?
So I work for Building Healthy Communities here in Salinas. We have a lot under our umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
We're an organization that got incubated through Action Council of Monterey County. It was a 10-year initiative by the California Endowment, who picked a few locations of vulnerable populations in different cities, and we were chosen to be one of those sites. With that being said, BHC carries a huge workload here in Monterey County. We have a parent committee, comité. We have land use. We have thriving neighborhoods for Salinas and for Seaside. We have youth groups from La Cosecha to Ciclovia, and they all are pushing racial equity in the systems. So the parents focus on outreaching other parents to be able to facilitate conversations and bringing it up to stakeholders, so to the board meetings, and that's for the city and school board meetings. And in collaboration, they work with the youth to bridge that component of the parent and youth and the two different perspectives of how it impacts the community as a whole. So there's a lot of beautiful work being done.
I think we could spend the whole day just talking about the work.
Yes, correct.
Let me focus on one component, right? You mentioned the balance of having conversations between the parents and the youth and making sure that it's equitable. When you speak to the youth, is there anything right now that the youth are highlighting that is currently a struggle for them? Like something that they're facing right now that we might want to like highlight or lift up?
Right now, I think people or youth specifically are struggling with the transition of coming back into school, the whole in-person. I know it's been a couple of years, but I think we also lost a couple of years through COVID. So I think that the big highlight is transitioning back into a social environment, going from a computer environment to actually dealing with people again. I think it made our youth a little sensitive to humans in general, and being called out or being put in the position or just speaking up. They've become more shallow, more in their silo. So now it's kind of like they're starting to venture out, but also recognizing that they need resources and need help and support, social, emotional support, to be specific. How are we bringing our youth back together in a setting where they're able to express not only their feelings, but their actual struggles, on a day-to-day basis, watching their parents struggle through the pandemic, and realizing that a lot of things aren't really accessible to our community and how much our parents make it seem like everything is okay.
Yeah, I think we've always survived on everything's going to be okay. Right. My little brother started the pandemic in middle school and then came out of the pandemic in high school. But he still acts like a middle schooler. And no one wants to talk about that. No one wants to talk about the traumas that were experienced, the isolation that ended up happening. And then we all want to just go back like it's normal. Right. And not even only the students, but the teachers. Like the teachers experienced loss too. They had to maneuver through a Zoom environment they weren't prepped for. So I think there's still a lot that we need to really heal from when we talk about those issues. Now, the question is, what does healing look like, right? Because a lot of these conversations are centered around healing, but let me ask you, you do a lot of healing work. And sometimes we don't call it that. Sometimes we just call it the work. But if you were to define healing in your community, what does that look like to y'all?
I'd say to even begin, it'd be acknowledgement. Realizing that there's another human, like the in la quech, that's where it really hits. Knowing that people have their own struggles and treating them as humbly as possible and as genuine as possible, because you don't know what that person is going through, whether they have a funny, giggly facade. You don't know what's going on inside, so just acknowledging the person for one, and then getting into the conversations of what is it that you actually need? What can I provide? Knowing, getting to know the conocimiento part as well. Like how do the resources or whatever I have, whatever light I carry, how can I pass that on to you and share it? So it's not necessarily actually having to sit in a círculo. I know that that's our way for a lot of folks, but I think that when we introduce people, or before we introduce people into those ways, is actually seeing them as human beings, and being kind to them and to ourselves while we're having those difficult conversations. We tend to shy away from them, but the acknowledgement piece is what's gonna get us to those steps to do the actual digging and the healing. Because you can't just go on and point out someone and then be like, oh, this is your list of baggage. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, get to know the person, what got them to that dark place, and then talk to them. It takes a little bit of counseling, so to say, when it's really a plática. It's a conocimiento. It's like, again, how can I support you? What resources do I have that can support you and benefit you on the long run before I introduce you to a whole setting of let's go sweat?
Yeah. You mean there's not just a magic pill I can swallow, be all right?
Nope.
I got a list. I gotta deal with the whole list of baggages I carry. You said a lot within that, and thank you for sharing that, because I think the way that you share it, it was very easily digestible and easily to understand. Right? That's beautiful. There's a couple things that I want to touch on. You mentioned enlaquech. For the folks that might be listening that don't know what that means, do you mind explaining a little bit? What is enlaquech?
Tú eres mi otro yo. It's smoking mirror, basically. A veces no queremos ver lo que otra persona, or we're quick to judge the other person, not realizing that a lot of that is our own trauma, We forget that piece of humanity.
Yeah, of humanity, that interconnection. And then you talked about Círculo, right? Sitting in Círculo. So I'm going to bring you back a couple months when you were in the Mujeres de Tiro down in King City in Jolón. And you got to sit with the maestras there. You got to be in a space that was femme-identified, that was femme-centered, femme-healing. And you got to connect in that way, even through a sweat ceremony. How was that retreat for you? How was that weekend for you? How was that connection to the maestras for you?
Oh, I haven't had the chance to actually be honest with myself about the retiro. So that's a great question. But I think overall, going back to being human, it was definitely a reality check. It was, okay, you've been doing the work. All right. How much have you done of it for real? It was a beautiful experience sitting with all the women. But again, it was a moment of reflection for myself, like, damn, like I've been doing this. There was a lot of anxiety. But again, it was my own trauma. It was my own trauma that I hadn't dealt with, like just me being away from home, just me leaving my son. It's just little anxieties that peek through the day that you're like, dang, but how do I fill my cup so that my little one is okay? It was that moment of realization that it was like, órale, this is what healing looks like. This is what filling up my cup feels like. I know I'm going to have the stressors of like, life doesn't have me right now. I'm checked out, but really I'm centering myself. I'm bringing myself back home. So it was a give and take between myself, like how being selfish in a sense of like, this is my space, this is my time. The vibe is good. The medicina is present. How do I actually pocket this to then share?
Yeah, I like that. The vibe was good and the medicina was present. That's real, and that's the true thing, right? When we sat, because I went to that retiro shortly after you, right? The next weekend, and it's that same thing. You show up and no one's being fake. Everyone's being real, and in that realness, you have to do an inventory check. How am I really healing? And it's not time to deceive myself, because I'm good at lying to myself.
Yeah.
But just being real with myself, and what is it that I got to work on? And then this medicine that I just felt and experienced, how do I take that back home to my community, to my family, to my relationships, to my little ones, to my partner, so that they could benefit from that same medicine? So I like that aspect of it. Now, this question is going to be a little bit harder. Maybe. We'll see.
Okay.
There was a lot of maestras that you're connected to, that you continue to heal with and you continue to learn from. We often say we didn't get traumatized on our own, so we can't heal on our own. Healing is about connection. So thinking about your healing journey, is there one person that you want to lift up that has walked with you in that journey in a good way?
I'm going to say Laura Tinajero. I feel like Laura was my mentor while I was a troubled youth. a person who people didn't want to spend their time with. Laura came through while they were imposing like anger management, doing all these extra little programs like gang prevention and gang violence and all of that. Laura came in at a point where it was like we had people who were talking about the issues that didn't necessarily connect to the issues.
Gotcha.
And then Laura came in. She knew about the struggles. She was empathetic and she was open. You know, she didn't impose anything on you. Her approach was very homegirl, very like comfortable, very ¿qué te puedo en qué te puedo ayudar? No, aquí estoy, you know, like imposing things on you. It was definitely a conocimiento. It was definitely like, I got you. Like, you need something, like, let's go, you know? Like, Laura has been a crucial component in my life. There was a few times where I kind of shied away or kind of like, you know, was like, I'm kind of doing my own thing. And some way, somehow, Creator placed her right in my life again. And this is why I'm actually here at Action Council now. I was doing an internship and I was asked, like, where do I want to go? And when they told me that Laura was there, I was like, I'm going with Laura. And sure enough, I connected with her, got brought in, and started my healing journey, like, for real, my healing journey. Doing the digging from childhood through, like, what I was going through at the moment. And she was supporting me, support others, and filling up my cup at the same time. And I say that because I was shadowing the Joven Noble with her. So while I was doing my own healing and being brought into sacred spaces, I was also allowed the opportunity to provide for others that went through the same experiences, and that allowed me to fill my cup as well.
I like that concept of like she was mentoring me to mentor others.
Yeah.
That, I mean, when you talk about intergenerational blessings and intergenerational healing, like that's it right there. Right? Someone that's walking you in that journey that allows you to not only fill your cup, but also see that sense of purpose in yourself.
Yes.
So I definitely like that. That's another one though, purpose. Because I think we often get stuck. And you know this, we've been in training together and we often ask, what's your purpose? And sometimes we get almost stuck in answering that question. So it's a two-part question. One is, if you were to say, what's your purpose? How would you answer that? And then I'm going to have a follow-up question in terms, you mentioned Joven Noble, you mentioned circles. I'm going to come back to that one in a minute. But what do you think your purpose is in your community, in your family, in your relationships?
Definitely to spread the light that I carry and not the shade that I carry. To focus on basically sharing my gifts and not my baggage. It's definitely to leave it better than what I came into, making sure that people don't go through the same things that I went through, and realizing that there's other opportunities and other ways of becoming wiser without going through the experiences. So I think that's my purpose.
I don't got to burn myself to know it's hot. I'm a knucklehead, so I learn by experiencing, but I would hope that at some point I could learn from other people's lessons, right? And not me having to go through it the hard way.
Yeah.
You know, we often get stuck on the intergenerational trauma, everything that gets passed on from my ancestors, the experiences that they experience. But what you just highlighted right now was the intergenerational blessings. They left us a lot of beauty too. So can you speak about that? Like, what are some blessings and beauty that you think you inherited from your ancestors?
The carácter, man. The attitude is there for sure.
Carácter and passion.
Yeah. The carácter and passion. I actually go for the passion. I say, you're lucky I am this passionate, you know? But I think the perspective of looking at things, not only for what they are, but also pulling the good in it, you know, the beauty in it. My mom has a horrible way of letting you know what you need to know. She's very blunt, like hella direct, that sometimes you take it as an insult instead of a guidance or
instead of
a
criticism.
Consejo. Yeah, like it's like, no, you take it harshly. But I feel like in generations we've lost a lot of communication. And I think that now we try to tailor a lot of how we speak to make sure that we're not hurting people's feelings, to just be conscious. But I feel like with that, we lose the message a lot of the time, you know, and part of being human and part of wanting the healing is being honest, you know. So if you can't be honest with yourself, having that other person who can be honest for you and with you. And there's a difference between the talking shit and stating facts.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that for sure is something that I've carried on, being very straightforward, telling you what I need or what is going on rather than beating around the bush. I think I'm definitely carrying the hardworking, the guerrera, the I'm here for a long time, even and for a good time, you know, even if it's not forever. And the alegría, you know, the like, you know what, I don't need anybody to make me laugh. I got myself to make myself laugh. So
I feel it.
La alegría and lo trabajador, you know, the need of supporting my community.
Yeah. I think we might have a similar mom. My mom is direct. And if it didn't land well with you, she's like, that's your problem. I simply just held up the mirror. And if you don't like what you see, then change it. But comes with the alegría too, right? Because I think that there's a lot of healing in laughter. There's a lot of healing in joy. Healing doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be sad. It doesn't have to be painful. Like healing has all the different components. Healing's an everyday part of life. So thinking about just everything that you shared, because I said I was going to come back to one component. You sitting in circle, you mentioned Joven Noble, you mentioned youth groups. As a participant, is there a teaching that you gravitated towards? Is there a teaching that you took with you that you just continue to learn from?
I really like the codex. I feel like the codex is something that if you're not into vision boards, this kind of allows you to get into vision boards, and only because you get to see the ugly and the beauty, you know. You see the transformation of where you were. I think a lot of the times we undermine like our growth, or don't even take the time to acknowledge our growth. Sometimes we feel like we're stuck in the same struggles, and maybe we are in similar situations, but we are past the finish line. Yeah. So I think the codex is one of my favorites just because it allows you to acknowledge the trauma and also like where you are now, like what you envision and your true values, you know, like the valores that you actually carry, that you haven't forgotten about, that even though things have gotten ugly in the way, like you still carry yourself with honor in that way.
Yeah, that's a good one. You know, I have one of my brothers, Rodney Washington, that says, we got to celebrate ourselves, because if we don't, who will? And sometimes we get stuck at being our own hardest critic, that we forget to celebrate the wins and how far we've come along, right? Because we're like, oh, I'm not where I want to be yet. But if you look back a little bit, you see how far you came. When you were talking about having that passion, I was a passionate youngster, and sometimes my passionate got
you in trouble.
Got me in trouble. So when I think about now, like I channel my passion differently, right? It still provides me energy. It still provides me a voice. I'm just now learning how to build with it and not destroy with it, right? And for my own self. So it's a journey. Now, this next question, I want to take a moment and just highlight A.B. Ozuna, who's normally my co-host on here. He is dope, and this is his favorite question. This is my first time asking this question because he's not here. So I'm going to put that on my badge of honor. But if you were to have a mic and a stage and you can highlight one issue uninterrupted, what is the issue that you would want to highlight?
It's hard because I have two that I'm like, but I feel like it'd be like world hunger and homelessness. I feel like they go hand in hand. I feel like just being here in Monterey County and seeing all the produce and all the waste of produce, like I'm just like, man. And then we see all the homelessness, we see all the efforts being done for it, all the food banks, you know, and I'm like, damn, how do we bridge that? Like what bridge do we need to be able to collaborate, to be able to go back to the basics? I feel like we've become so greedy in the sense of like, I want more, or I already have this, but I can get more. And it's like, man, what happened to the basics of like con que estés lleno, you know? Like, if your tummy's full, like, hey, pass it on to the other one.
Yeah.
Like, hey, if we have food that is going to waste, like, why isn't it available for us to go, like, have, like, little workshops where it's a pick your own stuff, you know? Like, come harvest your own food workshops, even if it's after, like, the workers have already, like, gone through those surcos, you know? Like, where does the community come behind that to clear that up, start their little farmers market? How do we provide back to the community or use even those resources to feed the homeless? You know, there's just like, they go hand in hand, that I'm just like, man, everybody has room for another family, you know, like, to come, or like everybody should have that, like, those are just the basics, you know, like the basics should be provided to everybody, regardless of race, age, ethnicity, whatever boundaries, whatever labels you want to use, just as humanity, like, those are the basic things that everybody should have just to thrive.
Yeah, whatever false barriers we created.
Yep.
You know, I like that when you said, what bridges do we need to create, right? Because that to me sounds like it's solution oriented. You're not saying this is only an issue, but what do we got to create in order to get rid of that issue? And I think sometimes we miss that component. I'm thinking back, you know, when I was working at an agency called Communiversity, one of my coworkers there, his name's Zach, he created a program called Garden to Table, where what he ended up doing was getting our youth from our Joven Noble group and going in the community, and anybody that had a fruit or vegetable tree that was not kept well, says, we got some youth that will clean your backyard, and what we're going to do is pick those oranges that are eventually going to fall on the ground and create muck. We're going to pick those peaches that you're not necessarily eating, but that you're also not picking or cleaning. And what he ended up doing is that whole week, he would just go to every person that would want to be part of the program, and we would clean their backyard and clean their trees and trim them. And then we would take the excess fruit and then create a little farmer's market free of charge for the community. Anybody that walked up, take whatever that it is that you need. Didn't cost anybody no money. Didn't cost anybody anything. And all we did was just clean up people's backyards. So like something like that, right?
Yes.
Like, we have enough for everybody.
Like community gardens, you know, like, well, where are we putting those in neighborhoods instead of all these liquor stores? Like, come on, like, what are we doing?
Yeah. And you know, we got some bad people in our communities that know how to harvest, and they will make beautiful gardens that will feed the whole neighborhood, right? But is that greed? That I'd rather throw this in the trash than give it to someone. That's not community based to me. But I appreciate you lifting that up, because I don't think we talk about it enough. We think of homelessness and we think about people who might be going through a mental episode, or who are stuck in drug addiction, no shoes, asking for money. And they're equally important, but there's a lot of other people struggling with the same issues that might not be presenting that way, you know. Now, thinking about the next generation, who hopefully will be building those bridges to make sure that we inherit more blessings and less baggage. They also need a lot of support. They also need a lot of love. They also need a lot of guidance. So if you're thinking about the next generation, what is some advice that you would have for them as they kind of try to like navigate through this world?
I feel like I've said this advice to a couple of youth already, but I think one of the big ones, and this might apply more to the Latino community, to be honest. I feel like we carry this big burden of our parents already made the sacrificio to be here and give us a better life. And then we kind of hold that as like it's our responsibility to take care of them now. And although I am very forward with taking care of our elders and like providing and whatever lo que ocupes, aquí estoy, I think it puts a lot of pressure on our youth. I think it puts a big burden to where they feel like they're stressed out, their anxiety is peaking, because it's like they're going off to school and they're realizing that the rent here is super high. They're realizing that the bills are expensive and everything just continues to bump up. They see the pay rates, you know, and I feel like it's not your problem. It's not your duty. I feel like we don't emphasize that as much. I feel like si tienes y puedes, adelante. Si no puedes, ahorita, a lo mejor next time, but don't burden yourself over adult responsibilities while being a youth. Enjoy your youth, have fun, have fucking fun, because once you become an adult, I know we are raised to be 18, but once you become an adult, reality hits and there's no manual, there's no guide. So enjoy your life, set your goals, make sure that they're your goals, make sure that you take on a career that you like, that it's not, oh, well, my mom's wish was for me to become a nurse. My mom's wish was for me to do this. Like, no, do what makes you happy. Because if not, we're creating a bunch of expectations and we're not living in our full selves. We can't represent ourselves like how we want to represent ourselves because we're not living our dream. We're living somebody else's dream. Live your dream because you're not able to live your mom's dream. And even if you were attempting to, you're never going to do it the way she expected you or the way they expected you. Al fin nunca vamos a quedar bien, It's like live for yourself, live for your family. And although your mom is your immediate family, your mom already made the sacrificio, or your parents made the sacrifice knowing that they wanted to give you better. Even if they didn't have better, they wanted to make sure that you had better. So they were setting you up for yourself and your family and the next generations to come. Las que pasaron, ya pasaron. We're healing for them now. We're healing for them now. Like, let's heal for our next 7 generations.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think I was in Salinas with you when I heard that concept of like, I want to be the person that I wanted to be before the world told me who I should be. Like, we want to remove all those checklists that everybody else had. And guess what? At the end of the day, I'm still my mom's dream, right? Supposedly I'm the dreamer. She was the dreamer. I'm the dreamer. And no matter what I do, she's going to be proud of me. There might be some coscorones and some, ear pulls along the way. But I think wherever you end up being, mom's love's unconditional. So I appreciate that advice. I wish I would have got that advice when I was younger. So I wish I had you as a mentor to tell me that before I started going through the many different journeys of pleasing people. Yeah. But I appreciate that. Now, we're coming to the end of the conversation, but I wanted to pass you the palabra one more time. Is there any closing remarks, anything that you wanted to share that maybe you didn't get a chance to share? Story, teaching, experience, anything's on the table. Anything you want to close us out with?
Make sure you do your own healing. Make sure you love. Make sure you take care of yourself, and just remind yourself that you can't give out of an empty cup. So make sure you're hydrated.
100%. We had a maestro say, pour from your excess, not your essence. That to me, I was like, all right, cool. I could get behind that. But Maria, it's always good to share space with you, whether it's in training, whether it's in circle, whether it's in community. I just want to thank you for sharing your knowledge, sharing your stories, your teachings, and your teachers with us. So I know this won't be the last time that we hear from you, but I'm just so grateful for your story. I'm so grateful to share space with you today. Thank you.
Thank you for being part of my adopted family, even if you didn't want me.
It's kinship. It's kinship. That's what we call it, compadre and comadre. That's a chosen family. So we appreciate that. And to all our listeners, we're going to continue to host these conversations. So please tune into us. You can find us on Facebook under the National Compadres Network, and on Twitter and on Instagram under La Cultura Cura. And make sure that you do tune in to the Healing Generation podcast, as we will be continuing to release different episodes, focus on youth healing, focus on elders and yelders, and also focus on our comadres and our mujeres who are doing some beautiful healing work. So thank you again, Maria, and thank you to all our listeners who tuned in today.
For more information about Healing Generations and the Healing Generations Institute, visit nationalcompadresnetwork.org and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with our new releases.